What if you've been reading Psalm 23 all wrong? This isn't just a comforting verse. It's a map to a life filled with peace, abundance, and restoration. Hidden within these familiar lines is a truth so powerful it could transform the way you face every challenge. Are you ready to uncover these secrets and see your life through the eyes of divine trust and provision? Stick with me as we break down the psalm and explore how its promises can become your reality today. If this message resonates with you, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs hope. Don't forget to comment. How has God's presence impacted your life? Let's dive in. What does it mean to say, "The Lord is my shepherd"? This isn't just a poetic phrase. It's a declaration of trust in a deeply personal relationship. A shepherd isn't a distant figure. They live among the sheep, knowing them intimately. David chose this imagery because it reflects God's active role in our lives, guiding, protecting, and providing for us. To call God your shepherd is to acknowledge His presence in every detail of your journey. It's a bold claim of trust that sets the tone for everything that follows. But why a shepherd? In David's time, the role of a shepherd was one of deep responsibility and constant vigilance. A shepherd didn't just watch over sheep, they guided them to food, water, and safety. The sheep depended entirely on their shepherd for survival. This is the kind of care God offers, a care that is both personal and unshakable. It's about more than protection. It's about provision, ensuring we lack nothing we truly need, even when life feels uncertain. When David says, "I shall not want," he's not suggesting that life will be free from challenges or desires. Instead, he's expressing confidence that God will provide everything essential. This isn't just about physical needs, it's about peace, purpose, and fulfillment. Think about it. How often do we chase after things, only to feel empty once we get them? The shepherd offers something far greater, a life rooted in abundance that satisfies on every level. Trusting God as your shepherd also requires surrender. It's easy to try and control everything in your life, but true freedom comes from letting go. Imagine a sheep trying to navigate the wilderness alone. It would be lost, vulnerable, and exhausted. But under the shepherd's care, there's rest, peace, and safety. This is the life God invites us into, a life where we trust Him to lead, even when we don't fully understand the path ahead. This kind of trust might feel foreign in a world that teaches us to rely on ourselves. But the beauty of this relationship is that it's not about earning God's care, it's about accepting it. You don't have to prove your worth or achieve perfection. The shepherd's care is a reflection of His character, not your performance. And that's the heart of divine peace, knowing that you're loved and cared for simply because you belong to Him. As we explore more of Psalm 23, we'll uncover how this relationship with the shepherd unfolds, from providing rest to leading us through life's toughest valleys. For now, consider this. What would change in your life if you fully trusted the shepherd to guide and provide for you? Let's take the next step into the promise of rest. Have you ever felt like life is pulling you in every direction, leaving you exhausted? In Psalm 23, David introduces a refreshing image: green pastures and still waters. These aren't just poetic symbols. They represent rest and peace that go beyond physical relaxation. Imagine standing in a lush meadow with the soft hum of nature, or sitting by a calm lake where time seems to pause. That's the kind of renewal God offers, not just for your body, but for your soul. It's like hitting the reset button when life feels overwhelming. Think about how our culture glorifies hustle. We're taught to measure success by how busy we are, but at what cost? Exhaustion, stress, and burnout? David paints a different picture, one where God leads us to places of peace. Green pastures symbolize provision, a space where you're nourished not by your efforts, but by God's grace. Still waters reflect the kind of calm that's rooted in divine trust. It's a reminder that true success isn't about doing more, but about abiding in the one who provides for all your needs. This doesn't mean abandoning responsibility. It's about balance. When you take time to rest in God's presence, you find clarity and strength for the tasks ahead. Think of it like recharging a battery. If you keep pushing without pausing, eventually you'll run out of energy. But when you stop and allow God to renew you, you operate from a place of abundance, not scarcity. That's the difference between striving and thriving. Here's a practical step. Carve out moments in your day to disconnect from the noise. Spend 10 minutes in silence, reflecting on the blessings in your life, or read a psalm to refocus your mind. Maybe it's as simple as taking a walk in nature and allowing yourself to breathe deeply. These small acts of restoration can have a profound impact on how you handle life's demands. But here's the thing. Rest isn't just about pausing. It's about trust. Trusting that God can handle what you're so worried about. When you lie down in the green pastures He provides, you're not just resting your body, you're resting your faith. You're saying, God, I trust you to be my shepherd. It's a bold move, especially in a world that equates busyness with value. But isn't it freeing to know you don't have to do it all? As we reflect on these peaceful images, let me ask, what are the green pastures and still waters in your life? Are you allowing God to lead you there, or are you running on empty trying to do it all yourself? Let's dive deeper, because what comes next in Psalm 23 isn't just about rest. It's about restoration and a transformation that begins when you let go. Have you ever felt like a part of you is missing? Like something deep within you is broken or incomplete? When David says, "He restores my soul," he's speaking to that universal experience of longing for wholeness. Restoration isn't just about fixing what's broken, it's about transforming it into something even better. Imagine a cracked vase, not discarded, but repaired with gold seams, becoming more valuable than before. That's what divine restoration looks like. It's a process of healing that starts from the inside out. God doesn't just patch us up, He renews us completely. Restoration often begins in places we least expect, those messy, painful corners of our lives we'd rather ignore. It's like cleaning out an old attic. Uncomfortable at first, but necessary to make room for something new. What parts of your life are crying out for renewal? Maybe it's a broken relationship, an old regret, or a dream you've given up on. Psalm 23 reminds us that God is in the business of renewal, taking our shattered pieces and making them whole. This journey isn't instant. Restoration is a process that requires patience and trust. Think of it like growing a garden. You plant seeds, water them, and wait. Some days it feels like nothing is happening, but beneath the surface, life is taking root. That's how God works in us. He's restoring, not just what was lost, but creating something new and beautiful in its place. And when the first sprouts appear, it's a reminder that His work is always worth the wait. Practically, restoration starts with surrender. What burdens are you holding onto that God is asking you to release? Try journaling your thoughts or praying specifically about areas where you feel broken. Let God's truth replace the lies you've believed about your worth. Surround yourself with voices that remind you of God's abundance, like Scripture or trusted mentors, and watch how your soul begins to heal. The beauty of restoration is that it doesn't just benefit you. It ripples out to others. When you allow God to restore your soul, you become a source of encouragement to those around you. Think about how your story of transformation could inspire someone else to seek their own healing. That's the power of divine restoration. It creates community, connection, and hope in ways we can't imagine. But let's not stop here. If restoration is about becoming whole, the next step is about how we live out that wholeness. Psalm 23 takes us beyond healing and invites us to walk in righteousness, a journey that aligns our lives with God's purpose. Are you ready to explore what that path looks like? What does it mean to walk in the paths of righteousness? For many, righteousness feels like an unattainable ideal, perfection beyond our reach. But David's words in Psalm 23 offer a different perspective. Righteousness is not about moral flawlessness, but about alignment. Imagine a well-marked trail through the woods guiding you safely to your destination. That's what God's path is like, a steady course marked by trust, righteousness, and purpose. It's not about where you've been, but about where He's leading you. These paths are about making choices that reflect God's character, not for our own glory, but for His name's sake. Think about it. When we walk in righteousness, we showcase God's faithfulness to the world. It's like a lighthouse guiding ships through the dark. Our lives can be a beacon of His goodness. But let's be honest, staying on this path isn't always easy. The world offers shortcuts, tempting detours that promise instant gratification but often lead to regret. Walking with God requires discernment, patience, and sometimes the courage to say no. Let's bring it closer to home. What are the daily decisions you face that pull you toward or away from this path? Maybe it's choosing kindness over anger, integrity over compromise, or forgiveness over bitterness. Each step you take in alignment with God's will shapes you into the person He created you to be. And when you stumble, and you will, remember that the shepherd is there to guide you back. Righteousness isn't about perfection, it's about direction. Walking these paths also brings peace and abundance. There's a confidence that comes from knowing you're where you're meant to be, even when the journey is challenging. Think of it like driving with a GPS. You might not see the destination yet, but you trust the guidance, knowing the route has been carefully planned. That's what it feels like to walk in God's righteousness, assurance that each step is leading you toward something greater. And here's the incredible part. These paths don't just bless us, they impact those around us. When you choose to walk in righteousness, your actions ripple outward, inspiring others to do the same. You become part of something bigger, a movement of transformation that reflects God's love in tangible ways. How might your choices today influence someone else's tomorrow? That's the power of living in alignment with God. Life's valleys are inevitable. No one escapes them. David knew this well when he wrote, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil." Notice, he doesn't say if, but when. Valleys are part of life, places of uncertainty, pain, and struggle. Yet, David speaks with a confidence that defies logic. How? Because he knows that the shepherd walks beside him, offering protection and trust, even in the darkest moments. And that's the secret. It's not the absence of danger, but the presence of God that changes everything. Imagine walking through a dense forest at night, shadows stretching ominously in every direction. Alone, it's terrifying. But now, picture a trusted guide by your side, holding a light and leading you through. That's the image David paints here. The shepherd's presence doesn't remove the darkness, but it dispels the fear. The rod and staff, the tools of a shepherd, are symbols of both guidance and defense, one to lead, the other to protect. With these, God reassures us, we are not alone, and we are not defenseless. The valley isn't just a place of fear, it's a place of growth. Think about it. Mountains may have breathtaking views, but it's in the valleys where rivers flow, where life thrives, where roots grow deeper. In our own valleys, Whether financial struggles, health crises, or broken relationships, we often discover strength and faith we didn't know we had. These moments refine us, teaching us to lean on God in ways we wouldn't if life were easy. The valley, uncomfortable as it is, can become sacred ground. But let's not gloss over the pain. Facing valleys can feel overwhelming, and fear has a way of magnifying our challenges. That's why David's words are so powerful. I will fear no evil. It's not because the danger isn't real, but because God's presence is more real. This isn't denial, it's a declaration of peace that only comes from trusting the shepherd. What valleys are you walking through right now? And how might it change your perspective to know God is right there with you? Here's something practical to remember. When the shadows close in, cling to what you know. Write down scriptures that remind you of God's promises. Keep a list of past victories where He carried you through, and speak words of faith even when fear threatens to overwhelm. These small acts anchor you in trust and keep your eyes on the shepherd rather than the shadows. As we emerge from the valley, David paints a surprising picture. A table, a feast prepared in the presence of enemies. What kind of shepherd turns a place of fear into a place of celebration? This is where the story takes a turn, from survival to abundance, and it's worth exploring what this feast means for you. Imagine this. You're surrounded by enemies, people or circumstances that want to see you fail, yet right there, God sets a table for you. Not a quick snack or meager provisions, but a feast. That's the scene David describes, a table prepared in the presence of adversaries. It's a declaration of abundance and victory that defies logic. God isn't waiting for the battle to end to bless you. He blesses you right in the middle of it. This isn't just survival, it's triumph. The table represents more than food. It's about God's favor and provision. Think about it. In ancient cultures, sharing a meal was a sign of fellowship, peace, and honor. To have a table prepared by God Himself is the ultimate sign of His care and commitment. And the fact that it's done in the presence of enemies sends a powerful message. Nothing can thwart God's plans for you. Not opposition, not doubt, not fear. Your shepherd's favor outweighs any threat. But let's make this practical. What enemies are you facing right now? Maybe it's a toxic relationship, a stressful job, or even internal struggles like self-doubt. Whatever it is, God is inviting you to sit at His table, to rest and receive His provision. This isn't about ignoring your problems, it's about shifting your focus. When you sit at His table, you're reminded that God is greater than any challenge. And here's something remarkable. The table isn't just about you. It's also a testimony to those watching. Your ability to experience peace and joy in adversity speaks volumes to the people around you. It's a living example of what trust in God looks like. Think about it. Who in your life might be inspired by the way you handle difficulty? Your response to the feast God has prepared can impact more lives than you realize. This table also reminds us of our worth. Too often, we let life's challenges diminish our sense of value, convincing us we're not good enough. But God says otherwise. When He prepares a table for you, He's affirming that you are loved, chosen, and worthy of His peace and blessings. It's not about earning His favor, it's about receiving it freely, even in the midst of the storm. But the imagery doesn't stop here. David continues with a powerful statement. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. This next verse shifts the focus from external provision to an intimate expression of God's favor and abundance. What does it mean to be anointed, and how does that overflow into every part of our lives? Let's dive in. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. This single line carries a wealth of meaning. In ancient times, anointing with oil symbolized favor, blessing, and calling. It was a mark of being set apart for a divine purpose. When David declares that God anoints his head, he's acknowledging a deeply personal relationship with the shepherd, one where abundance isn't just about material needs but about spiritual richness. Imagine having your life so filled with God's presence that it spills over to those around you. The overflowing cup is a vivid image of God's limitless provision. It's not about barely getting by or having just enough. It's about having more than you need. Think of a glass being poured into until it can't hold any more, spilling onto the table. That's the kind of life God offers, not scarcity but overflow. And here's the key. This abundance isn't for hoarding, it's meant to be shared. Your blessings are a resource to inspire, uplift, and bless others. How does this look in real life? Perhaps it's about using your talents to serve, offering encouragement to someone in need, or even sharing financial blessings. For instance, if you've experienced peace in a tough time, share that story. It might give someone else the courage to trust God in their own valley. When your cup overflows, it becomes a testimony of God's trust and goodness, drawing others closer to Him. But let's not overlook the oil. In biblical times, oil was also a sign of healing and restoration. To be anointed is to be refreshed, renewed, and empowered. It's a reminder that God's favor isn't just external, it's something that transforms us from the inside out. Have you ever felt like you were running on empty, only to experience a moment of renewal that gave you strength to keep going? That's the power of God's anointing. This overflowing abundance isn't just a temporary fix, it's a lifestyle. It's about walking with the confidence that God's peace and blessings are never ending. Think of it like a fountain that keeps replenishing itself, always full and always flowing. And the beauty is that this abundance isn't tied to circumstances. Even in the midst of challenges, God's provision remains constant. But the question is, how do we live in this abundance daily? It starts with a mindset shift, recognizing that you're already anointed and equipped. From this place of abundance, Psalm 23 leads us to one of its most profound promises. Goodness and mercy will follow us all the days of our lives. What does that mean for how we walk through life? Let's explore. Surely, goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. These words from David are more than poetic. They're a declaration of God's unwavering commitment to us. Goodness represents His provision, kindness, and care, while mercy embodies His forgiveness and compassion. These aren't abstract concepts. They are active forces that pursue us. Imagine being followed every moment of your life by divine blessings and grace, never alone, never abandoned. That's the promise of the shepherd. What's fascinating here is the word follow. It's not passive, it's relentless. God's goodness and mercy don't casually trail behind you. They actively chase after you. Think of it like waves lapping at the shore, never ceasing. Even when we wander off the path or make mistakes, these twin companions are there, pulling us back, reminding us of God's faithfulness. Have you ever felt unworthy of such constant love? This verse assures us that worthiness isn't the issue, God's commitment is. Let's bring this into practical terms. How often do we live as though we're on our own, carrying burdens we were never meant to bear? Goodness and mercy remind us that we're never without help. Think about your day-to-day life. When was the last time you paused to recognize the small acts of God's provision, an unexpected opportunity, a kind word, or even the strength to get through a tough moment? Those are glimpses of His goodness and mercy in action, but this isn't just about personal comfort. When we embrace the truth that goodness and mercy follow us, it changes how we interact with others. We become more forgiving, more compassionate, because we understand that what God gives us isn't for us alone. It's meant to overflow into the lives of those around us. Imagine the ripple effect if everyone lived with this awareness. The beauty of this promise is its permanence. All the days of my life. God doesn't take breaks or grow weary. His peace and love are constants, regardless of our circumstances. Whether we're on the mountaintop or in the valley, His goodness and mercy are there, steady and unshakable. What would it look like to live with that kind of assurance every day? But there's more. David doesn't end the psalm with this promise. He shifts the focus to eternity. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This isn't just a conclusion. It's an invitation to see life from a divine perspective. What does it mean to dwell with God, both now and forever? Let's dive into this eternal promise. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. These final words of Psalm 23 are not just a conclusion. They are a climactic declaration of confidence in God's eternal promise. For David, the house of the Lord wasn't merely a physical temple. It symbolized God's presence, peace, and provision. To dwell there forever is to live in unbroken fellowship with the Shepherd. It's an invitation to a life of trust, both now and into eternity. Imagine having an eternal home where you are always welcomed, always loved. This promise isn't just about the afterlife. It starts now. To dwell with God is to experience His peace and protection in your daily life. Think about the moments when you feel most connected to God, whether it's during prayer, worship, or simply in the quiet stillness of your heart. Those glimpses of His presence are a foretaste of what it means to dwell with Him forever. Eternity isn't just something we wait for, it's something we begin to live out here and now. Dwelling with God also brings purpose. It shifts our perspective from the temporary to the eternal. When you live with the awareness that your life is part of God's eternal plan, the struggles and victories of today take on a deeper meaning. Think about your current challenges. How might they look different if you saw them through the lens of eternity? This shift doesn't make life's difficulties disappear, but it does remind us that they are temporary, and God's promise is everlasting. And here's something profound. Dwelling in God's house means living in His abundance, where there's no lack, no fear, and no striving. It's the ultimate provision, a life fully sustained by His grace. In a world that constantly demands more from us, God invites us to rest in the knowledge that He has already provided all we need. What would it feel like to stop chasing and start abiding? This eternal promise also impacts how we relate to others. When we live in God's presence, we become ambassadors of His kingdom, reflecting His goodness and mercy to those around us. Think about someone in your life who might need a reminder of God's eternal promise. What could you do to show them a glimpse of the peace and joy that comes from dwelling with the Shepherd? But here's the big question. Are you ready to embrace this promise fully? To live a life that starts here and stretches into eternity, marked by trust, peace, and transformation? This isn't just a poetic ending. It's the beginning of something far greater. And now, it's time to take everything we've explored and apply it to your journey. So, what will you do with what you've learned today? Psalm 23 isn't just a poetic passage. It's a guide to living a life of trust, provision, and abundance. We've uncovered its layers, from the care of the shepherd to the promise of eternal peace, and each verse invites you to step into a deeper relationship with God. But here's the challenge. Will you let these truths change you, or will they remain words on a page? Think about the valleys you're walking through right now, or the areas in your life where you need rest and restoration. What steps can you take to trust God more fully as your shepherd? Maybe it's surrendering control, carving out time for quiet reflection, or simply asking Him to lead you. Transformation begins when you act on what you've learned. Now, I want to hear from you. What part of Psalm 23 spoke to your heart the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to know how this has impacted you. And don't stop here. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future messages that can inspire and transform your journey. Together, let's live out the promises of Psalm 23, walking in peace, abundance, and the assurance of God's eternal care.